Today we're going to be editing a headshot photograph. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And if this is your first time here, my name is Dan Quintero and I am a commercial photographer, and I make videos about anything and everything related to photography. And today we are going to go over something that you guys have been asking me about, which is editing. So we are going to edit from start to finish a headshot photograph. Now, what I'm going to show you today is not the right way to do something. This is just the way that I do it. So you have to find your own balance that takes into account the amount of work that you're willing to put into an edit and also what your client wants. So I'm just going to show you what works for me, and hopefully that might be helpful for you. And something that you're going to have to work out for yourself is how much effort you're going to put on editing that image. So it really does depend on the type of shot that you're working on. So if I'm working on a headshot photograph, I tend to set myself a limit of no more than about 10 minutes. Now that's really more of a maximum. I tend to spend somewhere around about 4 or 5 minutes per image, and I find that that's a really good balance when you take into account how much I charge for one of those images. But if I'm working on an image that's going to go on the cover of a magazine or maybe on a homepage, then I'm going to spend a lot more time working on those types of images. But then again, I'm also going to charge more for that level of service. But today we're talking about headshot photography. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a full edit. I'm going to do from start to finish, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Now, some of the other videos that I've seen online that show this, they tend to rush through things, and they'll make comments such as, if I was doing this, seriously, or if I was doing this for a client, then I would take my time. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an actual edit. So this is going to be an image that will be delivered to the client. And what I'll do for the repetitive bits, so you're not watching me do the same thing, for 2 or 3 minutes, I'll just fast forward that so it's still in the video, and you can slow it down if you want to see how it actually works. But other than that, I'm just going to keep the whole thing in there so that you can actually see what a real edit looks like. And if you find this video useful, I would really appreciate it if you could click the like button and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I know that most of you are not going to do this, but if you are one of those that clicks the like button and also subscribes to the channel, then thank you very much. Now let's jump onto the computer and we'll start this edit. Okay, so here's the image that we are going to be working on. I'm inside of Capture One, so from here we're going to go into Photoshop. I know that a lot of people are going to argue and say that you can do a lot of this stuff inside of Lightroom, but the tools that you get in Photoshop are much more powerful, and there's just more tools at your disposal. So I always go into Photoshop. Here we go. We're going to let that launch, and I'm editing with a Wacom tablet. So I would highly recommend that if you don't use a tablet, that you consider purchasing one and using one. I know that the first time you use one of these tablets, it's a little bit difficult and you sort of want to give up. But if you persist with it, you will never go back to a mouse, and you are going to be able to work a lot faster with a tablet than with a mouse. So we've got our image inside of Photoshop. I'm just going to unlock this here on the home layer just by clicking on it. And the first thing that I like to do is I like to do all of my healing brush work before I get started on anything else. So the way that I work is I do healing brush, then I do my color, correction of color, then I work on the eyes typically, then I look at hairs, stray hairs, that sort of thing, and then I will fix the backdrop. In this image as well, there is a little bit of, with this particular lens, I get a little bit of chromatic aberration. I'm not sure whether you can actually see that, just a little bit over here. It may not come across in the video, but we'll also take care of that as well. So, okay, so in order to start looking at the healing work, I work mostly with a frequency separation layer. I covered this in last week's video, and I'll link this in both here somewhere on the screen, and I'll also put a link in the description if you want to check that out if you haven't used frequency separation, and where you can download the actions. I use the action from Aaron Nace from Flearn.com. Again, a big shout out to him. If you don't know who Aaron Nace is, or you've never been to Flearn.com, I'll put a link in the description. Make sure that you go check it out, because he is an absolute authority in Photoshop, and he just knows everything there is to know about Photoshop. So if you want to learn
how to use Photoshop to the fullest, make sure that you go check him out. Anyway, I've already downloaded the action, and I'm going to use the 16-bit version of his action. So I'm just going to play that, and this is just going to set everything up for me. So when you do a frequency separation, when you execute frequency separation, this is where we're separating texture from color. We want to make sure that this radius, we set it up so that we can't see any texture on the skin. I'm just going to bring it up. It's 4.6 at the moment. I'm going to bring it up a little bit higher than that. I'm going to go to maybe, I'm going to go to about, there you go, 6.2. So I'm going to click OK on that. It's going to go through the rest of it, and it's going to set up the frequency separations layers that you can see over here. Again, just to recap, if you haven't used this before, low frequency, it's talking about color, and high frequency is talking about texture. So let's have a look at the work that we need to do here. I start at the forehead typically, and I'm going to be going on the high frequency layer. I'm going to change my brush to the clone stamp tool. I'm going to set my opacity to 100, and I'm going to change the sample to current layer only. So then what I'm doing is I'm going to remove anything that is temporary. I don't remove anything that is permanent, that is part of the face. We'll deal with that in a second, and I'll show you how we do that. But initially we want to get rid of anything like a pimple or little things that are just temporary. So for example, you've got a little pimple in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to sample from somewhere else, and we're just going to go over the top of it there like that. This one here seems to be like a little bit of a pimple over here, maybe a little bit of a pimple just there, and I think this looks like a pimple as well there. So by using a frequency separation layer rather than using the regular stamp tool or the healing brush, you're actually picking sample texture from one part of the photograph and just overlaying it over the other. So sometimes you'll also find these little situations in skin where the texture just sort of changes all of a sudden. I like to even that out a little bit, like you can see in this spot over here where I'm highlighting it. If I move that away, you can see that that's you've got pores in here, but you don't have any in there, or you've got much less in there. So I just typically just go over the top of it and just put a little bit of texture back on the skin as well, and it just looks a little bit more even. It just evens it out. Now don't worry about the color just yet. I know that there's issues with color over here, but we're going to fix that later. This gentleman doesn't have a lot of, he's actually got pretty good skin. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of some of these pimples again that we've got over here. This is a rash, and then over here we've got a little bit of rash as well. So for guys, around this area is usually common to find issues with shaving. So shaving will cause rashes and little cuts. So we want to get rid of those as much as we can, just reduce them. And I am constantly just sampling from an area and then copying from that area to another, from a clean area to the affected area. And every once in a while, what I will also do is I will switch off the frequency separation layer, and I will see what effect we've taken, or what work we've done so far. So when you disable the frequency separation layer, you always need to make sure that you do it at the grouping layer, not the individual layer. If you do the individual layer, you're going to get some funny sort of results. So make sure that you turn the group off and on. So as you can see from here, we've got a much cleaner skin. We've still got some coloring problem down here, but we'll fix that a little bit later on. Okay, and now we do have a little bit of some issues here. This is just hairs, and I will try to fix some of them. I won't do all of them because it does make it look a little bit weird. Otherwise, it makes the skin look a little bit perfect, a little bit too perfect, I should say. And so I'm just going to do a few in there. Now, this is one of those things that I was talking about before in the introduction of the video, where you know, if I'm doing something for, say, the cover of a magazine, then I would, well, first of all, we wouldn't have this problem here because we would have hair and makeup, and they would take care of the shaving as well. But then if I had to, then I could obviously go and spend several hours. But at this point in time, I just want to get rid of anything that looks like a little rash or a pimple or anything like that. And down here, we've got a few longer hairs. You can see there, that whole section here, it looks different to that. So what we can do is we can actually just, rather than, at the moment, I'm just doing a dab. So I'm doing a dab and then paint. But for some of the larger areas, what you can do is you can actually sample from an area and then do bigger brush strokes, and it will actually, where it makes sense. You need to make a judgment call in here. Okay. Again, it's all about taking time. And I know that I said that I spend, you know, on average 4 or 5 minutes. Obviously, I'm taking a lot longer here because I'm talking into camera, but otherwise I would be going a lot faster than this. But let's just have a look at that. And again, it's just about evening out and just making it look a little bit nicer than, a little bit cleaner than it was before. Let's have a look at that. Let's zoom back. We're looking at this area over here. We're going to do it before and then after, so that looks a lot cleaner as well. Let's look at the whole face, because this gentleman doesn't need a lot of work. So let's do that. And we're going to go to before. Whoops, wrong layer. Before and after, before and after. And it's very subtle. You probably can't see any difference unless you actually zoom in and you can see the before and after. I'll do that. Before and after, before, after, before and after. Hopefully that's coming through in the video. The other things that I wanted to have a look at from here is the color. So actually, just something that I've just noticed, we're going to use the high frequency separation as well to fix. There's a little hair here that's bothering me. So let's have a look at that. We are going to go to the stamp tool again, and we're going to make it nice and small this time. And I'm going to sample again. It doesn't matter about color. I'm only sampling texture. So I'm going to sample from this eye here so that it can follow me, and I've got enough room to play around with this. But what we're going to do is get rid of that eyelash. Okay. So let's have a look at that again, and then maybe sample from just above it. That looks a little bit better. Where you sample from, you may have to experiment with that because you know, you're going to get different results depending on where you sample from. Some samples are going to be better than others, and so just experiment and see what you come up with. So that eye again, let's do it before and after, before, after, before and after, before and after. This is really helpful. Switching back and forth is going to help you make a better edit. I'm also going to have a look at these. We'll look at the eyes later, but I am going to get rid of these little veins here as well, just for now. So I'm going to sample from the white here, and then just do that a little bit. Okay, that looks a little bit better. You never go right up to the I guess the end of the eye there, because it does look a little bit weird. It's sort of flat. It sort of eases into it. If you went all the way, it looks kind of weird. It looks like it's too much. So doing that again, let's do it before and after. Before and after, that just looks a lot more natural. Let's have a look at this eye as well. Got the same problem here, so we're going to sample from down here, and just towards the edge, I always leave a little bit of red because that is what actually happens in the eye. So it makes it look a little bit more natural. When you're sampling, always make sure that you don't get any repetitious patterns as well, because that can look a little bit weird as well. So that's looking a little bit better. We don't want to get rid of every single vein because the eye has veins. So if you get rid of all of them, it will look a little bit weird. Around the nose, sometimes guys, when they're shaving, they'll miss this bit as well. So we'll take care of this bit as well. And what we want to do now is maybe sample some skin texture from over here. Okay, so we'll see what that looks like. And that looks a little bit better. We've lost a little bit of definition there, although I think that that's actually in the photo already. So let's just do that. And then what we'll do is we'll take a sample there. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. Okay. I think I'm happy with that as well. I've got those little nose hairs. They do bother me. They don't look very good. So, okay. I think I'm done with the actual skin, the blemishes and healing. So now we're going to move to the low frequency layer. So again, we're talking about color here. And if you look at the color, it's a lot easier sometimes to see the changes in color when you switch off the high frequency layer. Okay, so we don't switch off if you switch off the low frequency, you're going to see the results or the high frequency is going to become visible. And if you switch off the high frequency, the low frequency is going to be visible. And sometimes I'll even work in this sort of mode while it's blurry, because I think it is a little bit better to identify color. So from here, for example, if you look at this section here on the right, let me make my brush a little bit bigger so you can see where I'm pointing. But this section here, there is a little bit of discoloration in there. So again, what you can do in here is you can do the clone stamp tool. So we're going to hit the S key, and we're going to take color from here, and I'm just going to paint over the top of here, right? Now that's a little bit too much. So let's bring I'm going to bring my brush down to 30% opacity, or actually, I meant to say flow, beg your pardon. Opacity is at 30, flow is at 30, or 29 in this case, that's fine. So we are going to copy from this area here and just a little bit there. Now let me switch the layer back on as it would be normally, right? Let me undo this. Let me just undo this and show you in this way what's happening. So I'm just going to sample here. I'm just going to go over the top of it like that. Now that might even be a little bit too much. Let's go with it. Let's do a flow of maybe, let's do 10% on the flow. So we're going to go here and just a little bit. And that's looking a lot nicer as well there. Okay. So then I will do, down here we had a problem over here. So we're going to sample from just around that, the area, and then just get rid of that. Let me show you the before and after. So before and after, before and after. So you can see now we're not only just getting rid of the texture that was damaged on the skin, but we're also fixing the color as well. Okay. Around the nose, just a little bit of redness in there as well. So let's maybe just get rid of just a little bit of that by just going over the top. I'm sampling from the tip of the nose, which is a little bit lighter. Okay. And I'm going around the sides just a little bit there. Okay. Let's look at the before and after. So that redness is going away now. Okay. And and I would continue to do this. There's a little bit of redness here on the cheek there as well. So let's have a look at the whole thing. We're going to turn off the whole. So we're going from that to that. Again, before, after, before, and after. So I'm pretty happy with that. I know that my client is going to be happy with that. So next we are going to work on the eyes, and we've already done a little bit of work by removing the veins, but we're going to fix up the rest of them now. Now, when I finish working on my frequency separation layers, typically what I will do is I will collapse the group again, and I will do a merged visible layer. And you do that on a Mac by clicking or holding down the Command, Option, Shift, and then the letter E. So on a PC, that would be the Control, Alt, Shift, E. And what that does is that it creates a new layer over here, as you can see, and that is the result of everything below it. So imagine if you had like an equal sign. Okay, so everything below, this layer equals, and then you have this new layer that's created. So if I switch off everything else, you'll notice that this one here is the result of everything else. Okay, so I'll turn it back on though, it doesn't make any difference at this point. So what we're going to do now is fix the eyes, and we've done a little bit of work already, but what we're going to do is with this one layer, we're going to go into the filter menu up at the top, and we're going to use the camera raw filter, which is essentially like bringing an image into Lightroom. Lightroom and camera raw filter are essentially the same thing. Once we've got it in here, what we want to do is we want to create a mask. So we're going to click on the masking tool. When we do that, it's going to look for the people that are inside of this photo. Now, what we don't want to do is we don't want to click on select subject. We want to select specific parts of our subject. So we click on the little face here. That's going to be automatically detected. And then we are going to pick specific parts of the body that we want to edit. So as we move down, we can see that different parts of the body of the face is being identified. So what we want to do is we want to first of all click on fix the white part of the eyes sclera, I think it's pronounced. So we're going to click on that and then hit create, and then from here we're going to bring the exposure a little bit. Now this is going to only affect that part of the eye because that's what we've got a mask. So if I go all the way to the end, you can see which parts are being affected. Okay, so what we want to do is just bring that up just a tiny little bit. You don't have to bring it up too much. I reckon maybe 0.2. Okay, so that's going to be just a tiny little bit, but it's going to make a big difference. So we're going to click OK, and let me just zoom in so you can see the difference here. I'm going to go before and after, before, after, before and after. You can see that in the white parts of the eye that there's just a little bit of a brightness increase, and that makes it look a little bit nicer. What I'm going to do just for this demonstration, normally I would work on the same layer and I would do all the different parts of the eye and the teeth in the same layer. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create another merged visible layer. Again, Command Option Shift E or Control Alt Shift E. And we've got another layer here. And now we're going to go into the filter again. We're going to go to Camera Raw Filter. This time we're going to repeat the process again. We're going to click on the person once it finds it, and then now we're going to select the iris and the pupil. So we're going to create one for that, and then this one we're going to bring it up a little bit more than we did on the other one. So probably about there, which is a little bit more than before. So I think about probably I'm going to say about 0.5, and we're going to go OK. And again, we've got it before and after, before and after. You can see that the difference in the eyes now, whereas before they were quite dark, now we're bringing some color back into the eye. Okay, so you can see after, before, and after. And if it's too much, you can always bring it down with the opacity. You can just dial that in as you want. So you can bring more of it, or you can bring less, or you can bring somewhere sort of in the middle. Okay, I think maybe about there looks about right, which is about 78%. And I'm going to create another merged visible layer, and then I'm going to do the teeth now. So we're going to go to filter, we're going to go to camera raw filter, we are going to then select the masking tool again, find our person, click on the person, we're going to go to teeth, create. Now with teeth, typically you don't have to do any brightening of the teeth. Sometimes you have to do a little bit. In this case, he's got really good teeth, as you can see here. But just for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to exaggerate the teeth a little bit. So I'm just going to bring it up just a tiny little bit by say 0.1 brightness. But then the key with teeth whitening is that you reduce the saturation of the teeth, because teeth, when they get old, or when you drink coffee or when you smoke, typically you're going to get a bit of a yellow orangey color to them. And so what you want to do is you're not trying to make that color in itself brighter by using the exposure slider. What you want to do is you want to reduce the amount of color that's in the teeth. So reducing the saturation does that. Now, you don't want to go all the way down to the bottom because it looks ridiculous. It needs to have a little bit of color. So you just bring it down just a tiny little bit, okay? and that looks quite good there, I think. Let's click the OK button, and let's look at the before and after. So we're looking at the teeth now. Let's go before and after, before and after, before and after. And if it's too much, you can bring it down with the opacity tool and just play around until you're happy with it. I think that looks pretty good there. So we've done skin, we've done some color around the skin, we've done the eyes, we've done the teeth. Now we are going to work on the hair. And so what we'll do is, in fact, let's create another merge visible layer, or merge visible layer there. Yep, here we go. Now I'm creating a lot more than I normally would. I would have one of those, and then I would build up over the top of it, but I want to be able to switch it off and on to show you the difference that it makes. So that's the only difference between a normal edit and the edit that I'm making at the moment, okay? So you just create the one layer rather than separate ones. So the one thing that I noticed is that he doesn't have any stray hairs. He's got a really good haircut here. So we're going to fix this up in here. And so selecting that layer, we're going to click on the healing brush tool, and we're going to use the spot healing brush tool. And we're just going to, there's a little hair here that's bothering me, so we're going to select that. And then there's another one here that's going across the ear that you can see there. That's bugging me a little bit, so we're going to fix that. And then there's a little one here that got missed. So there's a couple of little ones there as well. I'm being really picky here, but let's have a look. There's a little hair that's bugging me. Let's have a look at the other one. The other one's fine. There's a couple there, I guess, but that's it really. And so that is it for the hair. So the next thing that we need to do is work on the backdrop. Okay, so now we're going to fix the backdrop, and that is by far the easiest part of the whole process. And the way that I do it is on a merged visible layer, I click on the quick selection tool. And then when you do that, you'll see this button up at the top called Select Subject. We're going to click on that. That is going to select the person in the photograph. But of course, we don't want that. We want the backdrop. So if we go up to the Select menu and we inverse the selection, then that's just going to reverse it and select the backdrop. And then from here, once it's selected, I like to create a brand new layer. So I will do a Command-Shift-N. And for a PC, that would be Control-Shift-N, and let's just label that to backdrop. And then from there, what I do is I press the letter B so that I select my brush, or you can select the brush here on the left-hand side. As you can see here, just a regular brush. And then I like to have my backdrops so that they're not pure white. I don't like it when it's pure white. I think it's too harsh, and it's just a little bit too much for my taste. So what I do is I will pick something that's just off-white, and I will pick the brightest part of the photograph. Okay, so just over this section here, I like that. So I'm going to click on that, and then I am just going to simply paint over the top of it. And of course, because I've selected the backdrop, or I've excluded the person, I've inversed the selection of my subject, it doesn't matter if I paint over the top of him, it's not going to paint anything, okay, because it's selected off, or it's just selected the backdrop, not him. So that is pretty much it as far as the backdrop. I'll just do a Command-D or Control-D to deselect it, and that is pretty much it. Now, the reason that I put the backdrop on a separate layer is this. If I was to do this on a subject that had a different backdrop, something darker. So typically I will shoot on white, gray, or black. So if I was to shoot, if I had a black or a gray backdrop, then what I would normally do is I would add some noise and also some grain, just a tiny little amount to that particular layer. Otherwise, it looks a little bit too synthetic. It doesn't look real. But if you add a little bit of grain and a little bit of noise, then it sells the image a lot more than if you just painted it on. Otherwise, it does look a little bit too artificial. So that is pretty much the entire editing process for me. From here now, I would just save the image back into Capture One, and that image would then be done. Obviously, I've taken a lot longer to do it in here because I'm talking about it, but once you sort of get into the zone, I just put headphones on with music and I can just process images really, really quickly. A lot of the stuff is repetitive, but you find that you'll get a lot faster just with the more that you do it. And so anyway, that's it. I hope that this has been useful. And maybe you can pick up something from this that you can incorporate into your own process.
So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, again, please don't forget to click the like button. But more importantly, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. That is the best place to get in touch with me. Otherwise, you can reach me through any of the usual social media platforms, and you're going to find all the links in the descriptions. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.